This is the A. I'm Reg Clay.
And Norman G.
This is the Yay, where we talk about life in the theater and the theater of life.
Yay!
As always, we want to thank Central Works for sponsoring the Yay. Central Works is headed up by Gary Graves and Jan Zleifler. Central Works, a new play theater, reinventing theater one play at a time. Want to thank them so much for sponsoring the Yay. And we have a fantastic guest, April is it Deuschle?
Deuschle.
Deuschle.
Yes.
April Deuschle, you are an actress. We were just talking. You studied at the Academy of Art Institute.
Mm-hmm.
In San Fran?
Yeah.
I did.
Oh, okay.
Graduated in 2016, and she's been hitting the theater Bay Area, and she was in my play, Judicial Process. Well, she was in a bunch of plays, part of the Brecht project, and that's how I get to know you, April. And I just think you're a fantastic actress, and I'm so glad to have you on the Yay.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today.
Right on. And we'll talk more about April. Norman, as I begin each podcast, how was your week?
It's been an interesting week. I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I hear you.
My folks have been having health issues, and so there's been a lot of family just trying to calm people down. Finally, my stepfather started sending out text messages, and then we actually FaceTimed just so he could reassure everybody that everything's okay.
Yeah, I got a bad text last night. My mom is back in the hospital. I thought she was doing so well. She's been battling cancer, so you're not alone, Norman. You know, everyone's gone through it, and with COVID-19, and I mean, everyone is. This has been one hell of a year.
Oh
It's
yeah,
been a hellish year.
but it keeps getting more interesting. I just picked up another gig just today, coaching gig. So it's a little bit of dramaturging, a little bit of directing.
Right on.
A piece through Afro Solo. And I'll be doing
Yeah, can we talk about the grant that you got?
Oh right, and I got a grant. Oakland. It's called Oakland Cares, the Oakland Cares Fund, and it's for artists and arts arts organizations. And apparently, when they hit their deadline, they had no individual applications. So the word went out. They threw the net a little wider, and I put it in, and I got a grant. So I'm going to try to put some of that money towards putting a project together.
All right.
This week I'm working on Judith Offer's got a new play called Just Vote about Susan B. Anthony. And
that's right. You're going to be Frederick Douglass.
I'll be playing Frederick Douglass. But what I wanted to brag about, and if Judith hears this, then we can have words. But so you know me and readings. I really hate when somebody wants to do too many rehearsals for a reading. I just feel like it's, you hit the point of diminishing returns real quick. The more comfortable the actors get with the story, the less they remember that they've got to hold on to that script. So you get these moments of acting, and then they got to stop and find their place. Waste of time. So basically, I feel like you need to have enough rehearsals so the actors know how to navigate their script, and that's about it. So we did a first read through. That was cool. Started getting some notes immediately. I'm like, okay, whatever. I sent a message right afterwards because Frederick Douglass is in at the top and at the end. But most of the middle of the play, no Frederick Douglass. I'm like, well, why don't I skip the next rehearsal and I'll come back for the next run through? Because I think you can spend the time working on all those other things. Because they did stop, scene by scene. They'd stop and make little adjustments. And I'm like, if you're going to do that, then why don't you go ahead and do some scene work, and I'll see you on the other side. Yeah. So the producer agreed to it. Judith says, well, we should find another time because the first scene is just the two characters, Susan B. Anthony and Frederick Douglass. And she said, we should find another time for you guys to run that scene. I had suggested that we could just see how it goes in the next run through and then find some time. So now she has sent out an email. So the producer agreed. I did not have to go to rehearsal this week. I'm so happy. Then I get this email saying, well, we should find a time for you guys to run this scene. I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll see about that. Sure. That's on my list.
Yeah, I have, and also, I mean, Judith is a wonderful writer, and I've worked with her. She had she sponsored my reading. I think it was oh shucks, was it Don't Open the Red Book? But it was also Judicial Process as well, the first reading of that.
Yeah, Judicial Process. I remember that.
And there's a difference between those who are used to being in the theater and for those who, I guess, are coming at it from a different angle. And also, and we've talked about this before, Zoom readings are very, very different from actually being on the stage, and you can't
Yep.
have you have to have
Mhm.
different expectations. April, you've done a bunch of Zoom readings, obviously. How do you feel? I mean, as an actor, of course, it's different from actually being on stage, but have you made an adjustment? Are there things that really frustrate you about readings, or are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I've done a few here and there. It's definitely a shift. You know, I really miss that like really connection that you have with your scene partner. Like that's definitely lacking, and I think takes a different skill as an actor to like create that in a way that feels the audience can feel that they still have that connection
Right.
um, while listening or viewing on whatever platform. And for me, yeah, I've found kind of similar, like having some of the rehearsals, especially for the readings, it can be a lot because it takes I feel like it takes more energy for me to be on Zoom than it takes for me to be in person because I have to work harder to establish that connection and
Right.
you know how we're feeling and making sure that the other person's really getting across what I'm trying to say and invoke in them and in myself, and you have to listen harder as well, and also managing all your tabs on your computer.
Right.
um, yeah,
Yeah,
but it's our
it's
new world.
exactly. And of course, we're very happy as actors and as creators to still be working and still, because, I had initially thought in April, oh, geez,
Hmm.
theater shut down, so we're not going to be doing any work at all. But, there's a new Zoom life, but it takes a bit of adjusting. And what you're going through with Judith Offer, Norman, it's one of those things. And I'm sure Judith is sort of frustrated herself, but she has to trust the actors, trust that, the connection is going to be made. And if you're only going to be there for the very beginning, it sounds like she's using Frederick Douglass for exposition and so sort of a denouement, sort of a
Well,
button at the end.
there's the first scene is a juicy scene, and the end towards the scene is more than two people, but it's a very juicy scene as well. She's trying to talk about the ideas of the day, but from the points of view of these different characters, and it's exciting in terms of that. But if you read through something one time, and then you're going to have a bunch of rehearsals, I don't see why you need to keep. You should give the actors a chance to sort of navigate, and then you can go in and start to fine tune. If you know you're only going to have a few rehearsals, then bam, you know me, I'll hit you with notes. I do believe in notes, but I'm just looking at the schedule that we have, and I'm like, we're going to have with tech, we're going to end up having 4 rehearsals. I think there's a lot of other things that need some attention than that simple two-person. Because I do this. If I've got a two-person scene, I'm probably not going to spend a whole lot of time on your two-person scene. I may just have you read through it. I may give you a couple of notes. I'm not going to go back and waste everybody's time focusing on that two-person scene.
Yeah, and that's the key thing, wasting people's time. I mean, there are directors who are like, hey, let's bring everybody in, let's do the thing. And they're focused on so many things. And, a lot of times actors are, spending, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, whether it be Zoom
Yeah.
or, even worse, coming to the actual theater. And it's like, hey, wait a minute, I'm not getting enough time here. And, that's a horrible thing. But
Right.
in any case, yeah, so no, it's exciting. I'm exciting to see that, to see Just Vote, and we'll push that by Judith
Yes.
Offer when it comes up. I've only got 3 things as far as current events. Obviously, Trump is still trying to invalidate the votes. I was so happy to see that Georgia has actually certified the
Yes.
I think it's 16 electoral votes. So that's fantastic.
All right.
It's a little crazy that we're still going through this. I mean, it's Trump reminds me of, it's like a football team that's lost, but they're still on the field. They're
Right.
still, and it's crazy. I mean, the Giuliani hair dye, that was the funniest thing.
Oh, this week. Wow.
Oh, the press conference, and he's throwing out these crazy conspiracy theories, and I don't even know why he even bothered to dye his hair. I mean, we've seen his hair
Right.
white. What's the
Right.
big deal? So I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was just really, really funny. Don Jr. Last night he is tested positive for COVID-19. So yet
Yes.
another member of the Trump administration and now a member of his family is tested positive. And the third thing I had, so the FDA, they may approve the drug, Pfizer and Moderna. They've been making great improvements, but it appears that they also approved remdesivir, and that was a month ago. but the World Health Organization shot it down. So I'm wondering, I was like, wow, that's fantastic. We're getting closer to a vaccine. But it's like, well, if the FDA is approving something that WHO doesn't approve,
Right.
is the FDA just another arm of the Trump administration saying, well, we're just going to push something in for political purposes? Is it really going to help us? I don't know. I mean, how do we feel optimistic or pessimistic about a vaccine getting closer? How do you feel, April?
It's weird. I straddle the fence on vaccines in general. Do I get the flu shot? Do I not get the flu shot? Is it going to make me feel better? Is it going to make me feel worse? I mean, I definitely want something that is going to be good for everybody regards to COVID-19. And I hope it happens soon, but if it needs to be delayed longer, works better for us, then let's do that. I know that there's a rush, but I don't want it to be rushed that it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. How do you feel about, I guess, the craziness that is, Trump still fighting an election that is pretty much over? I mean, are you shocked by it? How are you taking it all in?
I mean, it's almost hard to be shocked by anything at this point.
Right.
But it's like, yeah, you're just kind of, I mean, having just done the Brecht Project, and I did the show I'm With Her, which was like very heavily focused on a character who is a Trump supporter. And so it's like, I'm having these like views the view of the other side, and having to think more about views from other people and their views based around Trump. Yeah, but it's at the same time, I feel like, I also work with preschoolers and kindergartners, and they know that when their turn's over, and you give it to the next person.
Right, exactly. Why can't why can't Trump understand what preschoolers already know? And
Yeah.
that I'm With Her play was very interesting, the Scott Munson play, where you had to sort of fall in love. I wouldn't even know if you were a Trump supporter, but you were clearly in love with someone who is a Trump supporter. So, that's a very interesting dynamic. And I've had friends of mine who was like, oh yeah, I'm married to my husband. Yeah, he's a Trump supporter. And yeah, he has these wild thoughts. I'm like, why are you married to him? And they, the answer gets very ambiguous. But Norman, how do you feel about, I don't know, Giuliani's hair dye fiasco and the
What I'm
drugs and all
loving,
that stuff? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just loving that there were hours, if not a whole day, somewhere in this week where I didn't actually worry about what Donald Trump did or said today. It's like, wow, it's so great. The Giuliani stuff is just sort of a last hurrah. Like you said, it's like that last cheerleader is still out there. And it's like, no, the game is over. Everybody's leaving. The fans are heading out of the stands. And you're still out there just cheering on. Like, God, you're a clown. But it doesn't feel as dangerous as it felt before the election. Now it's like, oh, okay, we need to contain you, get to January 20. But you're just, I look forward to not remembering Donald Trump.
Yeah, and I was so proud of the Michigan lawmakers who went to the White House simply to hear Trump. I was like, oh my goodness, is some crazy stuff going to happen? But they're very clear. They're like, listen, we're not changing. We're not
Right.
going against the will of the voters, and we'll listen to what you have to say. But if once we certify things, it's certified. So you're absolutely right. It's almost like the house is burning, and I've heard people talk about Trump supporters as being sort of a cult, and who knows what's going to happen after January the 20th, where these Trump supporters are going to be and what they're going to do. But you're right. The threat it's pretty much gone. I mean, the game is over. And I know there's this, I use the football analogy, you play until the end of the whistle. You play until,
Right.
the last seconds tick down.
Right.
And maybe that's what the Republicans are doing. I mean, I still think it's rather selfish, and it goes against democracy.
Well, that's the big thing is the Trump supporters and all these sitting Republican, sitting officials who are pretending like this is okay or this is normal. I'm like, oh, y'all, this is not good. This man is gonna be gone, and we're gonna have to clean this mess up.
Yeah. And also, and this is just the last thing, and now we'll get into, an origin story with April. But Kyle Rittenhouse, he was bailed out of jail. It's either today or yesterday. But in any case, a couple of Trump supporters and even Ricky Schroeder had bailed him out. $2 million. And the Kyle Rittenhouse story, and it's interesting talking to you, April, because you work with kids, although you work with little tiny kids, but how impressionable kids can be. I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse was 17 years old, really thought he was doing what, grown-ups wanted him to do. But, it turned out into him grabbing a semi-automatic shotgun and killing two people. I think he I think he killed one and he injured two other people. And just the influence. I mean, have you had to deal with either your kids, your students, along with this? Maybe not, because that just deals with politics, but even just friends of yours or people within your community who may be influenced by Trump or whatever. I mean, how have you had to deal with that, if at all?
Yeah, it's really hard. It's young people are such an impressionable age, and they have so much more access to what's going on in the world than we did. Like, everything is at their fingertips. They can get where they need to go at the blink of an eye. And those connections in our brain, they react before they can think about what they're going to do. And even if they have premeditatedly thought of something, like, I'm going to go there, I'm going to do this, they don't have that, like, let me take 2 steps back and really think about what is happening here and where I'm needed and where I can be of help and need within the community and as part of our country. And it's hard because when you're young and you hear this one thing coming to you all the time, you're going to start to listen to it. I mean, working with my preschoolers, we are doing what we would want to see them behave. If you say, oh, no, thank you, I don't want that. If you just keep saying that over and over and over again, they're eventually going to realize, oh, if I want the toy, instead of hitting, I can say, can I have the toy?
Right.
And when we socialize our communities, we hope that we're all being socialized in a way that is going to lead us forward in the future with love and compassion. But some people that's not at the forefront. They live in fear.
Yeah, we have to understand that kids absorb everything, every single thing. And so, what we put out there, whether we realize it or not, it's being absorbed. And I was listening to Kyle Rittenhouse's mother, who of course supports her son in every single way. And it's like, well, it's just horrible. And he had to defend himself. And it's easy to see how he could be sort of indoctrinated because, his mom is indoctrinated.
Right.
And that's really the horrible, what I would call the bad fruit of Trump. If we don't think that words have meaning, every time Trump, throws out a tweet and all that sort of stuff, we can laugh about it because we're liberals. But some folks really, really absorb this stuff.
Right.
And it's really horrible.
No, we're definitely being forced to think about how the things that we just take for granted. We're having to learn how to communicate about those things. The things that we take for granted as we think are obviously wrong, we have to find the language to be able to say to somebody, that actually doesn't make sense. That connection, that's not logical.
Yeah. And it's funny because, we were talking about I'm With Her. That was the play that you were in. And I was talking to Scott Munson off mic, and we've had Scott on several times. And he had a very difficult time writing about individuals that he had no connection with. I mean, how do you write about a Trump supporter if you don't understand where they're coming from? How do you have a conversation with someone? I mean, I understand Republicans and I understand, let's say being fiscally conservative, or let's say, even if you're a Christian, you're like, well, that's evil or that's sinful. But, separating yourselves from the fact that everyone's an American, everyone has a right to live the way they want to live and all that sort of stuff. And trying to talk some sense, trying to have a decent conversation with someone who doesn't have the capacity to listen at all. It's hard. And it's hard for theater. It's hard to write a play about it. It's hard to have a conversation. But even after Trump goes, we're going to have to deal with it because, these people, the 70 whatever million people who voted for Trump, they're not going away.
No, they aren't.
And with that, let's have a conversation with April Deuschle. You're talking about, young people. Well, you're young too. I mean, wouldn't you consider yourself a millennial?
Yeah, I'm a millennial.
But you're old at heart. I mean, you have a lot of I don't know, I just sense a lot of wisdom and a lot of energy through you. I was really enjoying, your just working with you, just a short time that I have.
Oh,
But in any
thank
case,
you.
let's get into where were you born and raised, and how did you get involved in? How did the theater bug bite you?
Oh yeah, all right. Born and raised. So I was born in Botswana, Africa.
Oh,
Yeah, I was born there. I moved to the United States. My dad's American. I moved to the United States when I was about 1 years old. Um, Lived in California, and then from the age of, let's see, whoa, let me think back. From
Any
the
sibling?
age,
Do you have any siblings?
I'm an only child.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Only child, raised with just my dad, which is probably why have such a vivid imagination, because I played by myself a lot.
mm,
I was an only child for a long time. I can certainly understand that.
Yeah.
I'm
And then
jealous.
I lived on the res for 4 years, from the age of 6 to 10, on the Navajo reservation in the Four Corners of Arizona. And that's kind of where I started doing a little more like theater things. My dad's a high school teacher, and so we would go to like the high school plays, and I would hang out with them and um, see the different things. And of course, like little holiday pageants. And that sort of choir is where, I started in elementary school, and I was like, wow, this is a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed it. Um, and then we did a really large move, and we went to La Paz, Bolivia. And that's where I really, really got introduced to theater and like what the entire theater world is. Um, so I went to this my American private school in La Paz, Bolivia. And the funny story is, I guess some theater company came to them and said, oh, we're doing Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. And for those of you who don't know that show, there's a very large cast of children
Oh,
who need to be in the show. And they asked our school, do you have, a choir? I'm sure you have a choir. Can they be in the show? And they said, yes, yes, we have a choir. They would love to be in the show. The school did not have a children's choir that was assembled. So they said, all right, get all the kids, tell them we're going to have a children's choir. We went, I auditioned, I did my little scale or sang whatever song we were doing in choir that day. We all got in the show, we were cast. And so my very first show, Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, and I was like hooked. I was immediately hooked. I was working with adults, semi-professional actors, and it was just like, I was like, this is it. This is the coolest thing I've ever done. This is so much fun. And they kept having us come back. They picked certain kids. They ended up doing Oliver. We did Oliver. We got to do Cats. And they kept picking different kids to participate in these shows to kind of fill out little scenes. We did Carmen. And I was just like, this is everything that I want to do. This is so much fun. There was moments where, the director was very intense. He would be very, very intense. And I learned very quickly the type of behavior that is needed to work in the theater. You show up, you're on time, you're ready to work, you have your lines down, you know what you're doing, you're here to work. And I was like, I'm here to work. This is great. We did that. I did that for 2 years. And then we landed back in Salinas, California. And that's where I went to middle school and high
wow.
school. Yes, I
No, I
moved
mean,
away.
that's a big jump.
It's a big jump. And I went to middle school and high school in Salinas, and kind of didn't really find my theater footing. I kind of tried to do some things, and then I just ended up doing sports and was really involved in sports, and
Is
did that.
Salinas kind of, I think of it as like a farm community. Is it kind of rural?
It is, yeah. It's a farm community. John Steinbeck,
Yeah.
Grapes of Wrath, all that. Yeah. So that's where John Steinbeck went to my high school, of
Oh.
course, at different times.
Uh-huh.
um, yeah. And then, as I got older, I realized how much I missed theater so much. And I remember they were doing Grease in high school, and I was like, oh, please, please let me be. I want to do this. Like,
Mhm.
they're like, oh, but you do sports, like you're unavailable for rehearsals after school. And I was like, I will be the background. I could be in 3 scenes, like whatever. I was like, I really know what I'm doing. And they said no. And I was like, all right, it's fine. And then, graduated and was like, all right, what am I going to do? now, and I took some time. I took like a gap year, and I went to Europe, and I lived in Denmark for a little bit, and I was
Wow.
doing like motion picture and just like film editing. And like we were doing all these fun projects, and I had this teacher, Jeppe, and he just said, you need to be an actor. Like that's what you're good at. And I was like, oh, great, because I'm really bad at all this computer stuff. Like I was not, it's like I was terrible at all the editing. I mean, I wasn't terrible. I just think I just didn't have that capacity to sit in front of the computer and edit things. And so I came back and I went, all right, yeah. He told me what I got to do. And so I moved to San Francisco and I went to the Academy of Art, and I met some of the most amazing people that have really shaped my career to what it is. Honestly, huge. I don't know if you guys know Karen Hurst or Dan Griffiths. They were two instructors that I had who just pushed me to do things outside of the school. And that just like having that, helped me to find theater companies and just auditions and meeting people. And then I landed at New Conservatory Theater Center, and that's just kind of been
great.
A little like haven and home for me. And being able to work with a lot of different companies throughout the Bay Area. I mean, New Conservatory Theater Company, Bay Area Musicals, Ray of Light.
Right on.
Yeah, gone over to Town Hall Theater. Just.
I had a quick question. So what, when you were in, I think it was Denmark, did you say? What, how did you find the Academy of Art Institute, and what led you to San Francisco as opposed to, let's say, New York or any other place?
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up in Salinas, so coming up to San Francisco was a thing, and I love it. I just seemed like the place where I wanted to be. Of course, New York is also an amazing place. I definitely felt like I wanted to stay kind of close to home, in a sense. But I just, I love. They say that San Francisco is a wooden city, and I just love like the wooden houses and the architecture here. I like that it's small, but it's not too small. It's just big enough. And finding the Academy of Art was in school. Not that I had a hard time. I just have a hard time with school systems that only focus on grades.
Yeah.
Get a grade, and I hated it. I hated it so much. Which is funny because my dad's a teacher, and now I'm a teacher. But
and now you are.
But I teach preschool, so we don't have grades. But I was just like, I want to go to a place, and I just want to learn. I was like, I just want to learn. I don't want someone to be like, here's your test. Tell me what you've learned. I'm like, I just want to learn. Yeah. And so in Denmark, a lot of times they take a gap year, and it's called a Hojskole. It's folk high school, and each one is catered to something slightly specific. So oftentimes after you graduate high school, you take this year and you get to explore the thing that you are interested in that you might want to study in university. And so this school that I chose particularly focused more on the arts, like mind body things, lots of yoga and movement, but also outdoors, but photography, painting, fashion design, motion picture, television, all these different more of the arts, but other ones focused more on like writing, and they each one focused on something. And that's when I went, oh yeah, I like focusing on what I want to focus on. And so the Academy of Art is more focused on the art. They create all of their classes catered to artists. So everyone in your English class is also an artist. Everyone in your math class or your astronomy class is also an artist. So they create these classes with the artist's mind. Yeah. Yes, we're getting graded, but they also are like, we get it. You want to doodle all the time. What project can we make where you get to doodle? Or what project can you do where you get to make a skit? they
Uh-huh.
want you to bring your emphasis into those classes. And that was really helpful for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I wish other schools, even if it's not an art school, to really understand what is it that attracts the student into, let's say, like I remember when I was in school, if you doodled, I mean, this is before I went to Duke Ellington School of the Arts. If you doodled, you were reprimanded. Hey, stop doodling. We're here to work.
Hmm.
Instead of a teacher saying, hey, you like doodling, so let's create something surrounding your talent.
Hmm.
um, the question that I have, and it's something that we've had a great conversation with a lot of other folks who've been on the EA about academia, about in the have you found that um, have you had to deal with any sort of, I guess, racism or a type of, there's some sort of academia, especially when it comes to theater, where you have a teacher that says, hey, theater is about this, or it's about Shakespeare, it's about this sort of a structure, and we want to make you into a type of actor that goes in this particular direction, which may not be the direction you want to go to. Have you had any struggles at all? It sounds like no. It sounds like the Academy of Art Institute really attuned to everything that you wanted to focus on. But have you had to deal with any struggles with, hey, this is who I am. This is the story that I want to tell. This is the type of artist I want to be. Did it ever run afoul with the teachers that you had?
Luckily, no, not so much. I mean, I'm sure there was probably instances that, have been probably like small moments that possibly have been repressed, but off the top of my head, not really. I was very fortunate to work with a lot of instructors who really catered to that. And I mean, they really pushed me in ways that were going to make me a better actor. And regardless of who I was, or, as a Black woman, um, I always felt very supported and encouraged to go out. I mean, I guess I will say I did have a class, um, a singing class, and it was like picking your audition songs. And I remember we did have to pick songs based on type. And
Uh-huh.
some people didn't have an issue with that. If you are a young blonde ingenue, there's a million songs for you to pick from. But for, young African American women, the pool is a lot smaller. There's very specific types. And it's like, can I be Celie in color purple? The end. Or,
Or you have to do
just
something that is totally against your type,
yeah, and against your type, and type definitely plays part of it and is okay to understand your type. I think that's important as an actor. But when you only are like, when it becomes very rigid, I struggled in that class a lot. And I
Mhm.
remember at the end of that class writing the teacher and saying, this is something that you need to change, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work for a lot of students who you are asking us to come up with 5 to 10 song choices, but I only have 5 to 10 song choices in general for the whole year, Um, and so being able to play with things that you might fight against type a little bit,
Mhm.
because you might not generally be cast as that.
You mean like a black mermaid?
Yeah, like a Black Mermaid.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and I think it's something, and it takes a lot of courage for you to write to the teacher to say, "Hey, this is something you need to change." Because a lot of times, as a student, you think, "Well, everything is on me. If I'm having this trouble, then it's
Hmm.
my fault. Then I've got something. I need to change because the teacher is always right, and the
Hmm.
school is always right, and that's a mindset that has to change." I had a question for both of you, and I'll start with Norman because both of you have spent time outside of the United States. I consider the both of you as sort of world travelers. Norman, you spent time in
Well,
South
I
Korea.
was in the service, yeah.
Do you find that it helped you as a artist? Because there are a lot of artists who they only come from one community, or they only think of theater or approach a text from an American perspective. Do you feel that being out in the world made you grow as an artist?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, of course, because part of being an artist is having experiences. And the big thing, even though I was in the army, so I was mostly sort of in America, in another country, we always had our world. I didn't have to learn other languages or or really deal on that level. But it's still, what it did for me was just made me realize it didn't matter where I was. People drink water everywhere the same way. Glasses look the same in every country. Doors are the same in every country. So there may be some cultural rules and things that are different, but so much was the same, and that just it blew my mind. I was like, wow, I realized that a lot of what we learn, especially in America, is just very insular. And instead, it was like, oh no, there's no reason the whole world can't be getting along because there's so much that we have in common. So it just made bringing that awareness back to, like you mentioned Shakespeare before, to being cast in a play like that and going, well, I could totally be there. Why couldn't it be me?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. April, how do you feel? How do you feel that living in Belize and living in oh shucks, I forgot that country. I
Denmark.
want to say Denmark. Yes.
Denmark, yeah.
Do you feel that it's made you a more well-rounded actress as opposed to just being in Salinas?
And what took you to Denmark? I'm really curious.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think traveling, going to different places, seeing how people behave in different places. I'm a really movement-based actor, and so my first thing is like, how does this person move? And people,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we all move differently based on our environments, and also just like having this worldview of, you never know who's sitting in the audience. That person might go, oh yeah, that reminded me of home or
Right.
whatnot. What moved me to Denmark, my dad lived in Denmark for a little bit. And so he was the one who mentioned these schools and was like, I think you would really benefit from going to one of
Wow.
these schools. So we did have old family friends who also lived there, which was kind of nice that I felt like I wasn't completely alone, but
Right.
it was a really awesome experience. It was an international school. I was the only American, but I met people from Lithuania and the Czech Republic and Denmark, and of course Denmark,
Right.
Hungary, and it was really fun, and it was a lot of it was probably one of the most creative times I've ever been, because we were forced to everything we made came from us. We didn't recreate anything,
Oh.
and it was, yeah, it was a good time.
Cool. And one question that I always, I'm always interested in technique. Did you learn any specific techniques that you still use today from academia, or, because Norman and I always wonder, do you learn more as an actor just, from life experiences, or do you learn from, the techniques? Like I learned, Stanislavski and, let's say, the Meisner technique or
Well, and you
something
talk
like
about
that.
movement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, the Academy of Art definitely focused a lot on Meisner, which is a great technique. For me, I really cling to really movement, Alexander technique. I did a lot of clown. And so I studied clown extensively and like dell'arte and those sorts of
Oh.
things.
Commedia dell'arte, right on.
Yeah, so I studied at Circus Center a bit. And so that for me is like,
Who are your teachers?
I worked a lot with Dan Griffiths, Danielle Conover,
Mm-hmm.
Dominique Jondon, who's an incredible French clown.
Oh.
And yeah, for me, finding the movement in the character is like, that clicks for me. Once I know how this person moves, everything else just like falls into place, which has been kind of hard with Zoom because I'm sitting.
Right.
You're sitting, or maybe just standing, you're kind of stuck in your square. So finding that is it's different, but it really helps. I mean, the last show I was doing right before COVID, I was over at Town Hall and was doing Cherry Orchard, which is a period piece. So,
Was that directed by Susan Evans?
it was directed by Stephen Evans.
That's
yeah.
what, okay, yeah.
And so I was playing Anya, who's a lot younger than I am in real life, but understanding that she's a younger person, so she moves with like a slightly different air about her but she's also wearing a corset. So like getting our corsets in very early in the rehearsal process was very helpful, because you realize that, oh, I can't just like slouch on a chair, because you wouldn't do that. So that sort of thing is a big thing for me.
Yeah, it's working with Susan Evans for so many years. I worked with her when she was the artistic director of EastEnders, and I know she loves those classics, and she also likes movement. When we did Fear and Misery in the Third Reich back in 2007, she had focused on during the rehearsal process, sort of using movements and gesture work to create a character. And I think her objective was to break us out of the usual way of approaching a character, like reading the lines and getting the beats and the blocking, and approaching it from a very pedestrian point, finding sort of an otherworldly, like if you have a gesture, how does that gesture formulate your character? Let's say folks in Denmark may pick up a spoon different than someone in, I don't know, Brooklyn, New York. So how does that formulate a character? And that was very interesting for me as an actor, and it sort of broke me out of my usual routine. Which got out a different performance. And I know that Susan she specializes in that. So how has I guess how's the theater life in the Bay Area treated you? Are you getting the roles that you want? Have you been optimistic, pessimistic? Have you been frustrated? Have you been enjoying it? I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel I'm still figuring it out. My big goal of like this past year was to be booked through the year, which I was until COVID.
Did you lose any money?
A little bit, yeah. I was I had one project that I was really, really excited to do with New Conservatory Theater. They were doing a show called Sugar in Our Wounds. And I was like, this is the one that is gonna, show everyone what April Deuschle has got. And unfortunately it wasn't able to happen, but we hope that we can bring it. It was with Sean Jay. If you guys know
Sean Jay West, right
yes.
on.
Yeah, he was directing.
Small world.
Yeah. And it's this beautiful, beautiful story of, folks during the time of slaves and enslaved folks, but also about love. And I played this character of Maddie, and she was so just figuring out the world and really trying to figure out and understand what love is, and how to still have love in a time where things were so hard. And I'm kind of forgetting the question that you had asked me.
No. Yeah, but it sounds like you're getting yourself known. I mean, if you can get, cast at the New Conservatory by Sean Jay, then obviously you're getting your name out there, and you're getting the sort of roles that you want. I mean, obviously post-COVID, you'll be back on, you'll be back on your feet, and everyone will sort of get back. But, we've had some actors who, let's say they get out there, they audition, and for whatever reason, they may become disillusioned because they're not getting the roles that they want, or they're telling stories that don't belong to them. But it sounds like that doesn't apply to you. It sounds like you're getting the attention that you want, and you're getting sort of the roles that you want. It sounds like you're not, it doesn't sound like you're frustrated at all. Nothing's knocked the smile off of your face.
I mean, of course I want to, be the lead every once in a while, but I also really love ensemble work. As a movement actor, like ensemble, like I'm the type of person, when you go to the theater, I'm like, what is the person who doesn't have lines? What is that person doing? And how are they supporting the person who is saying the lines?
Right.
And I love being that person. I love being that person in the background to fill it up, and like, because that gives me the devised work that it's not written. They didn't write that, but they knew someone who could do it. And I feel very fortunate that I'm often cast as that strong actor who can bring that. And ensembles are just as important as your leading people.
Yeah,
if not more so. If not more so.
Yeah, but you deserve both. Norman, I had just forgotten that I guess this another news thing is that SAG-AFTRA and Equity, they've come to an agreement regarding.
I haven't read it. I've been avoiding it. I got the friggin' email from the union, and I'm like, oh,
yeah.
What does this mean?
It's a bit vague. I mean, but it's basically saying that actors will not be penalized for doing Zoom readings or for, doing
Ha!
some
Well, good.
performances.
That's what they need to say.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Which leads me to another question. April, have you thought about being equity or SAG-AFTRA, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, of course. I definitely, I feel like that's a goal for a lot of actors is to, get equity. As of now, I feel like I don't, it's not needed. The projects that I want to do are not necessarily there. It's hard for, a lot of our Bay Area theater companies to be able to hire that many, a lot of SAG actors. And hopefully we'll get to a point where they can hire everybody's union and non-union and it all works out and everyone's paid equally and fairly. But right now I'm happy with what I'm doing. And, as I hopefully will get some points when we're allowed to be back up and running and get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to dominate the thing. Norman, did you have any questions? I do have a couple more, but I wanted to give you the floor.
No. I appreciate hearing, just especially whenever I hear a new conservatory theater, because they are such a complex. They're their own little machine. So I'm always excited to hear about somebody getting out. And I did see the Brecht project. So I did wonder, who is this young woman?
Thank you.
I'm glad you got to come on the show.
Yeah, no, and you have tremendous energy. I mean, I can really see you on stage, and even just there are a lot of actors who are like, oh, it's just a Zoom reading, and I'm got the script, so I'm not going to exert too much energy. But then you have someone who's like, I'm going to put everything into it, and you certainly have that. And as a writer, I really, really appreciate that. Um, so earlier this year, we had Eli Sonny Orquiza, I think that's his name, who created what we call the open letter, basically a letter for all theater companies, basically saying, hey, you need to be racially inclusive in hiring practices, and we need to have our stories told. And the question I have for you, April, both as a woman and as a person of color, as a Black person, as all of us are, do you feel, I, what's your take on the state of theater in the Bay Area as far as seeing roles as an audience member, for seeing stories of people of color, not just Black people, but also Latinos and the gay lesbian community or whatever? Do you feel that there's more or less racial inclusivity? And what's your take on it as far as like you auditioning and you getting roles and things like that?
Yeah, sometimes the Bay Area knocks it out of the park and they're killing it. And, we're the forefront of, inclusive casting and casting that represents the Bay Area. And sometimes they don't do so well.
Right.
And I also applaud this community because they don't let it happen very often. If it happens, they say something. And I think that's a huge important step into making sure that all theater companies do the same thing, that we see you, we're not going to let you cast only white people in Into the Woods.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
And as a matter of fact, and Norman, I will hope you cut your mic back on, but I think it happened in Kent State. I saw it on my Facebook feed.
Mhm.
Someone had cast, oh, you know about it.
I saw
Someone
that.
cast a white person to play Martin Luther King
Martin Luther
Jr.
King. Yes. Yes.
And I was like, no, this has to be a mistake. And I don't even know what their excuse was. I think the director was like, well, Martin Luther King represents not just a Black person's perspective, but he represents everyone. So anyone
Right,
can
he's
play.
universal. And I'm like,
Except
yeah,
not.
no.
Except not.
No.
Yeah, I feel like I'm definitely that type of person who puts myself in the room. If it doesn't matter. I will play who I think I fit the bill. If I think I can play that character, I'm going to show up to that audition. And some people don't, but I'm also, if I can do it a bunch of times, it might change somebody's mind. And then they will go, all right, you know what, next time, this is what's going to happen. And if I can kind of pave that way for somebody else, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah, but I'm sure there are roles that you probably wouldn't do. Like we talked a lot about the controversy that happened, I think, in Marin, what is it, Thomas and Sally.
Thomas and
I'm
Sally.
sure you would
Yeah.
not play Sally Hemings, a very willing, supposedly willing participant in, the relationship with, with Thomas Jefferson. I'm sure there are roles where you were like, probably not.
Yeah, but I mean, going back to even Scott Munson's play, I'm With Her, I don't think The Waitress was written for a Black woman originally. And it ended up that I was playing her, and that kind of shifted the dynamic of the play as well. So if I can do that, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. No, if you can make it work, and if it can be somewhat plausible. I mean, doing I'm With Her, there are plenty of individuals who get into relationships and they don't realize who they're hooking up with. There are all sorts of ways of justifying that sort of stuff. And I'm sure, as a director, Norman, you can sort of make, if you had to direct an individual who, let's say, is Black, but is married to someone who is a white supremacist or a Trump supporter, I'm sure there are ways that you can sort of make it work.
Well, you have to. You have to ask yourself the question. And I feel like I feel fortunate that I've worked a lot with playwrights. So I'm actually having a discussion with that person. And I feel awkward about it at times. I feel like the work needs to speak for itself. So if I'm totally wrong about my interpretation of what's going on, then yes, please help me, correct me. But if I read something into it that maybe isn't in the playwright's head, but I think it's in the play, I'm going to fight for that. I am. I've done it any number of times. I feel like on the positive side, I've had many writers come to me and say, "Oh my God, I did not realize this stuff was in my play." And I'm like, "Yay. So this was an important experience for you. I'm glad that, you can see it in a more positive way." But I do find myself nervous at times that maybe the playwright isn't intending what I see in the play, and I've gotten better about finding ways to ask. I warn them basically, because what happened is I had a couple of seasons with Playground, doing the shorts with Playground, where I'd get these plays. We've got one rehearsal. I'm just plowing through. I know what I've got time for, and that's what we're going to do. And then afterwards, I'd hear a playwright say to somebody, and Norman, just really did a good job with my play, even though they didn't do this, that was written or whatever. And a lot of times it's staging or stage direction. It's like I can't do it. We do not have the resources for that. I can't do it, so I'm not going to do it. But now I realize I should ask.
Yeah. No, and like I said, it's a collaborative effort. I mean, going back to, I'm With Her, like I compare that with another reading that I did earlier this year, which also dealt with race relations. Well, I'm With Her. I guess it only dealt with race. It did deal with race relations because there was Kimberly Ridgway. She was also in that, and that really directly dealt with race relations. But there was one writer that I worked with, and I did a reading, and it was very clear that he was only dealing with race relations on a very surface level.
Right.
And I tried talking to him as an actor because I wanted him to grow. And I was like, listen, as a Black person, this is how it reads to me, and it doesn't read right. So maybe you want to focus on this or that or the other.
Right.
And I got a terse response. Okay, yeah, I'll think about that, and just went on with it. As opposed to, let's say, someone like Scott Munson, who will be like, oh, okay, this is very interesting. This is how I'll tweak it. Or, he really there's some folks who believe in the collaborative process, who really want to tell the story. We've talked about, do you have to be Black to write about Black, issues? And my answer is no, but you have to be very conscientious of it. You can step on a lot of third rails if you do it wrong. Or can I write about, let's say, Asian issues? I need to be very careful and be very cognizant of responses that I get, because if I'm wrong, I need to be told that I'm wrong so that I can make the change as a writer. There are a lot of writers who don't want to do rewrites. They want to be right immediately, and they want to have, the actor just do it, and they don't take in any collaborative efforts. I mean, they don't take any responses, and that's a problem. So Sounds like I'm just running my mouth.
No. No,
But
you just gave me some food for thought. So I was like,
yeah.
oh, I got to
Now,
write.
I did have a question for you, April. Have you had to deal? It sounds like the answer is no. Have you had to deal with any issues as a woman? Let's say people being inappropriate. Let's say I don't
No.
know, sexual harassment or just being just not being attentive of you as a woman.
Or talking over you.
Yeah.
Ooh, talking over me. That's probably happened a lot. And those are some things that probably get brushed off and repressed. Luckily, not so much. I have been very fortunate to work with a lot of really sensitive and caring people who really work with you. I mean, I don't know if anyone's worked with Cindy Goldfield before, but she is an incredible person and works really well with intimacy scenes. And
What company is she with?
She works all over. She's done a lot with 42nd Street Moon. I did The Legend of Georgia McBride at Town Hall Theater with her.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a show where I had a lot of intimate scenes with my scene partner. And she just broke it down and made us both feel really comfortable. And also, the thing is, you have to remember that it's not real.
Right.
And working with like an intimacy coach is so important. And
Yeah.
I keep
we had Maya Herbstman on. She's also an intimacy coach. I don't know if you've heard of her.
Yeah. And I think that's something that all theater communities should really invest in. If you have scenes that are intimate, having someone, even if you think that it's not a huge deal, it might be a huge deal to your actors.
Right.
And even just asking them, is this somebody that you think, should we have someone here for this? And they might not even know, like, oh yeah, I know I'm just like hugging and maybe, a simple kiss, but that hug and simple kiss might not be so simple to an actor.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I want to be an intimacy coach. I think I'd be really good at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally see that. And you're right. It's absolutely necessary. Very much so. Not just for well, I mean, there's intimacy as far as that, but also even just, fight coaches, like let's say if things get, like a confrontational scene, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Sometimes I think people forget that actors are people and have their own baggage that they're bringing in and maybe even using within the scenes. So being able to like help them and protect them and coddle them where they needed to be is important.
Yeah, exactly. Where do you see yourself in the future? I mean, do you want to stay here? Do you want to move on to, I don't know, LA or New York, or, where do you want to where do you see yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I was just, really scratching the surface of all that Bay Area theater has to offer up until COVID-19. I don't think LA is quite my jam. I have a lot of friends that have moved to LA and they love it, but I'm a theater person. I like the stage. I like devising work. New York would be awesome at some time in the future. Chicago, I've definitely had my eye on Chicago. I feel like the pool is a little bit smaller, and they kind of focus on more of the things that I like to do in terms of devised work and new works. Yeah, Chicago would be nice.
Sounds good. Have you ever thought
Cold,
about
but nice.
Yeah. Have you ever thought of writing or directing or doing some other aspects of theater?
Yeah, I've definitely I've done some writing, I've done some directing. I definitely like directing a lot. I've had some fun with that and was hoping, in the future, in the long run, to definitely do more directing. I've written my own one-woman show.
Oh, was it produced?
It was. I did it with Safe House for the Arts.
Uh-huh.
And so I did a couple residency programs with them, creating my one-woman show called Stage Meet.
Yay.
Kind of about my life and my dealing with being an actor. So I'm hoping maybe I'll bring it back. This is the time, right? I have the time to work on it.
Yeah, and a one-woman show would be perfect for Zoom. So that would be a very cool thing.
It's true. I could put it on the online platform.
Yeah. Well, I think we've hit the 1 hour mark. Any last minute things before we tie it all up?
I just wonder if there's any particular spaces that you had your eye on. I mean, obviously, easier to say that about before COVID, but theater companies where you were like, oh, I would think I could fit in really well with those folks.
Yeah, definitely been eyeing SF Playhouse. Looks like a fun place to work, and they put on some really. I've been noticing that they've been putting on some really great shows.
Mm-hmm.
ACT's been also doing some really good works. I went to see Her Poorman 2 a while back and just sobbed through the entire thing. Yeah, I mean, and I also feel like there's just always new theater company, especially with this new Zoom world that I'm seeing that I probably maybe have never heard of. You know, someone's like, oh, I'm in this thing with so and so because they can now access so many more actors.
Right.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah, that's been amazing.
yeah, I know there's a good thing that's coming out is that we get to explore more outside of our travel radius.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's been awesome, and and also connecting, because one thing I worried about was, oh my goodness, we're all closed in, so we won't be able to connect with new people. But it's still happening, so that is just awesome. All righty, well, April, thank you so much for giving us your time. Norman, shout outs, birthdays.
Birthdays. I don't have a big list this week. I'm so happy. But Raelle Myrick Hodges, her birthday is coming up. She is an amazing director. I'm not sure where she is right now. Because her career takes her around the country, which yay for her. Actor I met just a few years ago. We were doing a reading of a Jeannie Baroga piece, Banyan, and Ashmore had just moved into the Bay Area, and I got to snatch him up for that. So his birthday's coming up this week. Alex Wong, who was one of the composers, collaborators on Paper Raincoat that was done through the Musical Cafe. His birthday's this week. Stuart Evans Smith Jr. is a black man. I always think of him as a young black man, but we did a show, I think it was about 2005. This is the show that my wife first saw me in. She has no memory of me being in the play. There were only 2 black men in the play, but somehow she doesn't remember any of that. Anyway, that was when I met Stuart. Deborah Eliezer is somebody I went to San Francisco State with, and she is still making theater. Amy Nielsen is somebody I met through the alley, the little bar over here, the piano bar. And then she had moved to New York. I think she has moved back, but she's a musical theater person. And the last one I have is Donald Lacey, who
Oh yeah.
yeah, Camposanto. He's done a lot of his own work. He is, powerful black actor in the Bay. So those are the birthdays I've got for this week.
All right, and my list is rather short too. So 2 days ago, Isabella Capozzi, she was also on the Yay. She was one of the youngest people that we've had on the Yay, and we did what was it? It was Women on the Verge of Nervous Breakdown. Looking at my posters, and I think she's maybe 18 years old now. But in any case, her birthday was 2 days ago. Also, tomorrow, another one of the alumni from Duke Ellington School of the Arts, Robert Digman. He was a fantastic actor. He was one of these actors who, we're all high school students, but he was actually getting gigs. He was doing the things that all of us should have been doing, and actually going out and getting cast and doing all sorts of shows while he was still in high school. So Robert, he is in Hawaii now, living the Mahalo life. So happy birthday to Robert. Also tomorrow, Keaton Wilkerson, we've had him on. He was one of the lead singers in Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. And his birthday is tomorrow. Happy birthday, Keaton. Paul Dannenhauser, he is the second half of the director. He acted in, we did The Chain. That was a musical cafe that we were involved in. And he and his partner, Jonathan Levy. Jonathan Levy directed the piece, and Paul was in the piece. So that will be his birthday's tomorrow. On Monday, Chuck Laxon, his birthday is on Monday, and Chuck Laxon is one of the actors and comedians at Bindlestiff. He and his wife, I'm trying to get both him and his wife on because they met.
Oh, right. You were saying for...
yeah, so in February, we're going to try to have a Yay special all month, having couples who got together through theater. So that'll be a cool thing. let's see, do I have anyone else? I see Donna Lacey, but that's, we've done that. And on Saturday, Tom Riley. And I'm sure
Oh,
April,
Oh, we love
yeah,
Tom.
Tom was fantastic. He was my Judge Patton in judicial process, and I've
mhm.
acted with Tom several times. We did Grey Gardens together at the Douglas Morrison Theater. Civil War Christmas, he was Abraham Lincoln. I'm trying to think of what else we've done. I feel like there's one other thing that we've done. I can't remember it. But in any case, Tom is fantastic, and he's still doing it. And I have no idea how old he is. I'm not even going to ask. But
Ah,
Tom is awesome, and that is it. Those are my birthdays.
he's over 21.
Yeah, exactly. He's of age. Shows. Any
Uh,
shows you want to push?
the only thing I had was I put it in the chat. The Just Vote is coming up on December 1st. So the Maskers Playhouse is doing this as a fundraiser. They're going to have stuff all day. We are the last piece of the day. So I'm not going to ask everybody to go to all of that, but 7 o'clock, you could see me, Frederick Douglass.
There you go. And that was written. Who directs it? Does Judith Hopper direct
She
it too?
is directing it, which I also I find problematic when playwrights. You need to be able to wear one hat in that situation. You really need to be able to sit and absorb your play. If you're busy, it's hard for you to do that, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. But in any case, Judith Hopper is directing, and she wrote the piece. So
Mhm.
and she's been a guest on the A as well. So we'll pump that. Also, Medicine for These Times. It's a virtual concert. It'll be it it's only on one day. Well, it's today, from 7 to
Oh,
8 p.m.
uh-huh.
And Angel Adedukan, and she was episode 147. She was
Oh, we
one of the
love
earlier.
Angel.
Oh, yeah, Angel. Oh, really? You see, small world.
Yeah.
She will be performing. Also, we've been pushing Trying. That is a piece by the Tabard Theater. I've never talked about what
Oh,
Trying is, but Trying is basically a piece where there is a uh, um, a lawyer who hires an assistant, and they sort of get into a tete-a-tete, but they sort of learn about each other, and that's being done by the Tabard Theater. It has
mhm.
been running since November the 2nd, 6th, and it ends tomorrow. And Melissa Mambuis, and she's also been
I
a
also
guest on
love
our show.
Melissa.
Small world, right on. I love that. And if you don't remember Norman, she had the wonderful story about how I think she's a cancer survivor.
Oh,
Yeah,
uh-huh.
she is
Yeah,
cancer
exactly.
free.
And she talked a great deal about that. Yeah, she and we did Grey Gardens along with Tom, who played Joe Kennedy Sr.
Wow.
Tom is always playing these historical characters.
He's good
Uh-huh.
at it.
He's very good at it. He's right on top of that. So yeah, so Trying, that will end tomorrow, and I'll have a link to that. Melissa Mambuis is in that show, and that's it. Those are the shows that I have.
April, do you have any shout outs you want to make?
Yeah, you can. I also do a lot of drag and burlesque, and I'll be at the Oasis Club on December 11th, Friday, December 11th.
Uh-huh.
You can order safe cocktails and food and have a socially distanced drag show.
Wow.
Right on. Yes, if there's a link, if you can send
Sure.
us the link, then
Yeah.
we'll push that.
I will.
April, did you enjoy yourself?
I loved it. This was so great. It was so nice to sit down and talk with you, Reg, and nice to meet you, Norman. And I
Yay.
hope that I can see you in real time sometime soon.
Eventually.
Yeah, I know. It feels like I've known you, but I had to remind myself, no, we've never physically met. So COVID times. But no, it's been wonderful, and I've said it many times. But you are a fantastic actress, and I love it'll.
Thank you.
I'm sure your career will just grow and grow and grow. All righty. So here is my blurb. You're probably watching this on YouTube. If you are, please like and subscribe and tell us what you like and what you don't like about it. If you subscribe, it helps us out because I'm still trying to find more sponsors. And, if our numbers are up, then those are numbers that I can present to potential sponsors to help the A keep growing. Also, if you're listening to us traditionally on your podcast, you can listen to us on any podcast app. If you're an Apple user, you click on that purple podcast app that's on pretty much all iPhones and iPads, and you can find us. We're also on Spotify, and we're also on the iTunes app. If you're an Android user, you can use the SoundCloud app or just go on soundcloud.com and you can find us. The Yay was created by theater people for theater people. If you have a show you want to advertise, or if you just want to advertise yourself, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm at Red Space Clay.
And I'm at Who's Your Hoosier.
April, is there any social media apps that people can find you on?
Yeah, you can definitely find me on Instagram. My performer account is Cheetah Biscotti. You can find me on there.
Right on. And I'll type all that out and put that on the links so that people can find. If you're looking for a fantastic actress, it sounds like you could sing too. Is that right, April?
I dabble in the vocal arts.
There you are. But if you're looking for a really energetic and just a really fun actress to work with, April, you can't go wrong with April.
Yay!
All righty. Thank you so much. And as Norman and I always say, we gotta find a better sign off. And we are out.